So one of the polls on my Instagram voted for a rendering tutorial, so here it is. So as you can see, I have this finished piece here. Now technically I can go ahead and post it just like this, but I like to do some rendering / lighting effects because it just makes the piece look a lot better. So I just want to emphasize that this is a tutorial on how I render and do lighting. I'm not going to teach you how to like draw an entire piece. That is something else. This is just how I do my final lighting. So you're gonna need your you're gonna need to make sure you have your things in like different layers. So what I have here is I have 3 different layers. You want to have a layer that's just your subject, and this will become important later. I have a layer just for my background, which is just a gradient, and then I have a layer for my fire, which here. So I also want to say this is a tutorial for Ibis Paint X because this is what I use. But this can apply to other drawing programs if they can support whatever I'm doing here. So one of the first things I do is I create a new layer and then I do a clipping mask. So then with the eyedropper tool, I'm going to choose a color from the background. So I'm going to choose this like mid color over here. And I'm going to set the blending mode to multiply. So I know that this is going to be really dark, so I'm going to like put it down to 50%. And then I'm going to take my lasso fill tool and just cover this entire thing. This will be like our shadow. Now, depending on your background and kind of the scenario, you're going to have different types of lighting. But the type of lighting I usually like to do is in darker kind of backgrounds, like think nighttime or stuff like this, because you just get more contrast and more interesting stuff compared to daytime. But I can make a separate tutorial for how I do daylight shading later. But generally this is how I do all my rendering pieces. So next you're gonna make another layer and clip it. What you're gonna do next is you're gonna click linear burn and set it down to 20 to 30%. I'm gonna go with 30% here. And the reason being is we're gonna make some sharp shadows. So take like your favorite like shading brush or a sharp brush. I'm gonna use my classic shading brush, pencil graphite, and you're gonna go in and make shadows like under stuff like under the head. I'm really bad at explaining where like you should place some shadows, but where I generally place shadows is under the neck and kind of like sometimes under like the clothes and everything. It just adds slightly more depth, and again, you just want some contrast, sort of, if that's even the right word for it. I'm gonna go ahead and put some here too. I drew this really quickly, so just like a few scuffed up mistakes here and there. But let me really quickly like do some of this for you guys here. You don't have to like go too in depth. I'm gonna actually fix this to look slightly better. It does make somewhat of a difference, so this is without it, and then with it, without, with it. I could also do it under the hair, but I just don't like how it looks under the hair. You can do it under the hair if you want, but I just don't. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to make another layer, clip it, and then click add, and just keep the opacity at 100. Then you're going to go and you're going to choose an airbrush and then choose your lighting color. So we have the fire here, which is going to be like our light source and everything. So this is actually one of the default colors in Ibis Paint X, so I don't really have to color pick it. Normally you would color pick it too, so you can get like an accurate lighting thing, but I'm just going to choose like the default purple because that's what I used for the fire. And what you're gonna do now is kind of airbrush it lightly. I just want to put emphasis on lightly airbrush it. You don't want to go like this. This is too much. Okay, this is kind of gonna be like our initial glow. So you're gonna just airbrush it slowly on where there would be light. Kind of like here. But sometimes I just like to say screw all rules to lighting and just airbrush a little bit on the back too. I don't know, I just like doing that. But you want to at least get it to where the light source is. I also want to say that I normally do a lot more rim lighting type stuff with my rendering. It's in all of my pieces, rim lighting. So it's not, this tutorial is more for that and not for different other types of lighting, especially because I don't utilize it in my pieces. But eventually I want to be able to do something like that. So once you have your initial glow layer, you can already see it's looking a lot better. So if I removed all the renderings we have so far, this is how it looks like without the rendering, and this is how it looks like with the rendering. Some people can actually just stop here, but I like to go further. So you're gonna make another layer, clip it, and then click add, and then lower the opacity down to 50. And you can see like we're using clipping mask a lot, and this is why you need a separate layer for your subject, because all of this is gonna clip onto your subject. So next you're gonna choose your favorite like shading brush once again, which for me, again, pencil graphite. It's a default brush in Ibis Paint, and if you have the free version like me, you're just gonna watch an ad to get it. So then you're gonna go in and add like highlights. I usually just like to like, you just kind of line the edges of like the face with it. You don't want to add too many of these though, because it's gonna look really off. You need to add these in kind of moderation. And also you have to keep in mind your light source. The closer it is to the light source, the more harsher the light's gonna be. So it's gonna make sense to have it there. So you're gonna want to add it there. Now, there is something called reflective light, and I'm not an expert at that whatsoever. I bet there are better tutorials out here for that, but this is kind of just a basic tutorial. I'm gonna add like a little bit of light kind of at the nose. Actually, just those two would be fine. Kind of like that. Now, I would tap lightly for like the reflective light. Like for the harsher lights here, you could just press it hard as you can, but for like reflective light, just tap it softly. This is if you have pen pressure on your thing. So yeah, pen pressure is gonna be your best friend here. It's possible to like do this without pen pressure. Like someone can simply like, if they don't have pen pressure, they can just lower the opacity of the brush a little bit, and then just kind of do that, you know? But yeah, you're gonna want to slowly add the harsh highlights and think about your light source. And as I mentioned earlier, do not overdo it. So I'm gonna add some on the hair here. And I usually like to find where I did the initial hair highlights here, and then just add some of these highlights. And then I'm going to go in and kind of trace these in a way. It does not have to be perfect, by the way. Don't go like too crazy. Don't do the whole head, because again, do it in moderation. You need to think about in relation to like your light source. I'm gonna do a few more highlights here, like at the fur maybe. Maybe like, since this is some... What did I highlight there? Oh. Now, if you have like metal, you're gonna want to do highlights there, because metal will reflect your light. That's just generally how it is, you know? Now, I forgot to add a glow at where the metal is, so I'm gonna go back and do that real quick. Cause like, you know, the fire is gonna glow, you know? Okay. But again, just slowly add your highlights and try to like think about where you are placing these. If you put in too much, I just find that it just looks weird and tacky, which you don't really want. You want your rendering to make your art look better. You don't want it to look worse. I'm gonna go in and add quote-unquote reflective light, but not really. Sometimes your lighting doesn't have to make sense. In most of my pieces, it actually doesn't make sense where I've placed everything at all, but people still like it and they don't seem to really care, so just do whatever you like, sort of. But and hey, I'm not here to like tell you what is right and what is wrong. Just do what you want to do. I think I'm almost done adding the highlights here. Maybe I'll add a little bit on the wings. Just be gentle and slow about it, you know? And don't be afraid to just like go back and like edit previous layers or just do whatever, you know? Okay, so then you have all your highlights, which again, you can just stop here and then call it good. This is already really good, but I like to go one step further yet again because I'm very extra with my art. I should have done this earlier for the flyer, but I need to make it glow real quick. Let me just, because fire glows, you know, but I forgot to do that, so this is not part of the tutorial. This is just me being dumb. Okay, so there we got that little bit of glow for the fire. So what do we do now? What you're gonna do now is you can, I'm just actually gonna do this real quick. So for some like special drawings like this one, I like to go in, because like there's a lot of negative space, so I like to go in with this glitter dot. Again, this is one of the custom brushes in Ibis Paint. To actually get it, you have to like scroll down pretty far. It's over here. But I just saved it to my brushes so I don't have to do that all the time. So you would make a new layer for the glitter dots and then just set it to add, because if you set it to normal, it just doesn't look as good. Like, let me show you if I set it to normal. And just let me draw a few here. I don't know, it just doesn't look as good to me. So I just put it at add and just a little bit more vibrant, you know? So just add a few glitter dots where there would be some light. Make it glow, you know? This is not, but again, you only do this for some drawings, okay? Because not all the drawings need these fancy glitter dots. Just this one is a fantasy drawing, so I just feel like it's necessary. And again, just try not to overdo it too much. Just have like enough to fill up the negative space. This is what you see in like a lot of my fantasy drawings. I have to have these glitter dots. It just really adds to the magic and everything, which I think is perfect. Also, now the backlighting that I made on the thing kind of makes sense now. Okay, so what you're gonna do now is you're gonna add layer from canvas, and you're gonna see why we do this. You're gonna then go to blur and click Gaussian blur. I just blur it as much as you want to. I just do 50 because that's just how it is for me. That's just what I think looks better. And then you're gonna click screen. Now it's gonna look wonky and scary at first. You're gonna want to go down and then just adjust the opacity. For me, I find that the best opacity for screen is maybe like 20 to 40%. For like a darker drawing, you can get away with doing it like more, but I don't need this to be as light. This kind of brightens up the drawing a little bit overall, and I don't know, I just like this glow effect that it has. Like, here's without it and here's with it. It just gives a slight glow. And then you're gonna duplicate this blur layer so we don't have to do that entire process again. And then you're gonna switch this to soft light. With this one, you can actually raise it up higher or like just have it lower. Now at 100%, this looks a little scary. So again, you're gonna wanna mess with the opacity. For me, I usually do it 60 to 80%. I think I'm gonna probably do 65% for this. Yeah. And what this layer does is it kind of makes the colors more vibrant. So this is without it, and this is with it. Like, it'll make your shadows deeper, and it'll like kind of make your lighter parts like lighter. And then finally, you're gonna make one more layer, and then you're gonna go to draw, click parallel gradation, And again, trust the process. So once you have your gradient here, set it to soft light and then lower the opacity down. Any opacity, let me see how it looks at 60%. Okay, I like it. Now, for the gradient step, it's, again, kind of optional. I just like to do it because for some reason I just think it makes the colors look a lot better. Because this is without it, okay? And this is with it. Sometimes for really like dull bleak colors, this really helps give it more like vibrancy or whatever the word is. And yeah. Now, depending on the environment and everything, you're gonna want a different type of gradient because this default like pink and blue gradient that I always use does not always work with like everything. I'll show examples of drawings that it might not work with like later on. Okay, so here are some drawings where I did use the blue to pink gradient. So basically it's more warmer tone drawings, kind of like with fire or daylight. So that's kind of when you don't use it. But again, it just depends on the situation, the scenario, and the background. But yeah. So this is pretty much it for how I render. Of course, the last and final step is signing your name to make sure people don't steal your art. Just choose a spot somewhere and just sign it. And if you think your signature is too like, it pops out way too much, I usually do it in like white or black and then I just click overlay. And if it doesn't look vibrant enough, just duplicate the overlay layer. And see, here we go. And that is how I render. So again, the difference rendering makes to your final drawing is absolutely amazing. So here's here's our drawing without all that rendering, okay? And now, here it is with the rendering. It just makes a difference. And I feel like it just makes your drawing look more dynamic, or whatever the word is. But yeah, I hope this tutorial actually helped people. I know I'm not the best teacher at times, and I'll do my best to maybe one day explain things better, but if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And yeah, that's the tutorial.